If you had to do it all over again, would you vote for Donald Trump again, yes or no?
Yes, I would.
If you go back in time, would you vote for Donald Trump, yes or no?
Yes.
I think I might know the answer on this thing. If you had to do it all over again, would you vote for Donald Trump, yes or no?
1,000% absolutely yes.
Anderson Cooper's face there at the end. I would love to know what CNN and Van Jones are thinking right now as they realise that so many people are still delighted that they voted for Trump.
Weird how quiet it got. The jobs numbers came in better than expected, and the Trump administration is pushing the Fed now to reduce interest rates. We've had 3 consecutive months of lower inflation when you guys told us that Donald Trump was going to drive the cost up and your egg prices are going to be so expensive. You guys haven't said anything about the fact that China has quietly rolled back many of their tariffs and publicly stated they're willing to discuss tariffs with the United States. You haven't said a single thing about what Donald Trump has been doing with Whitmer up in Michigan, even though she's a Democrat. You definitely haven't said anything about the Ukraine minerals deal, which also excludes any country that supported Russia during the conflict, as you said Donald Trump was a Putin supporter. You haven't talked at all about what India and Brazil just did and how that affects the BRICS nations. Could you imagine if you supported the president just a little bit?
You know why the mainstream media doesn't tell you all the good news that's going on? It's because it actually might be too much to handle. Do you actually think you can handle all of the winning in this video? Trump and MAGA have set off a ripple effect across the globe. Let's take a look and then we'll come back to America. This week, Channel 4, which is a prominent television station in the UK, released a documentary about the Muslim rape gangs in the UK, which many of the politicians in the UK have been wanting to ignore. Tommy Robinson, someone who was very outspoken about this topic, was jailed, but Elon Musk has been financially assisting Tommy Robinson. The Reform Party in the UK, which is considered a hard right party, won the election by 17-point swing from Labour. The BBC described this as a sobering day for Keir Starmer. Mainstream media in Ireland downplayed the protests that took place last week in Dublin, but fortunately some independent media actually did interview people on the street to give them a voice.
They're being ethnicised in real time. We have a web of governmental NGOs, a whole system against the Irish people.
Young men coming in all the one age. There's something wrong, something is happening, and I don't like it.
Fear for the future of the country, our children, especially our daughters. There's a lot of violence in society. I would be the first to help anybody who calls to my door to assist them and give them help. But at the same time, I don't agree with the policy. They don't know what they're doing. We have Irish people on the streets with no homes, and they're giving opportunities to people who are not Irish.
They gave them a voice that the mainstream media won't. Senator Keegan also called out the politicians in Ireland this week for their silence.
Out there in the bars, in the taxis and on the streets, it's all people are talking about. Yet in here, on the benches of the Shannon or the Dáil, we hear absolutely nothing. And I speak of the gigantic national rally that took place last Saturday, where up to 20,000 people marched through Dublin to oppose the government's suicidal open border policy. Despite the numbers, we have still heard nothing about it. When RTE did pay attention, they focused on the counter-protest, which was organised by the taxpayers-funded NGOs, who tell Irish taxpayers that any problems they may have with mass uncontrolled migration are only imagined. It is simply delusional to think that you can separate the immigration crisis from the housing crisis, or from the law and order crisis, the healthcare crisis, the immigration crisis, and so many others. Politicians and elites are prone to delusions, but luckily the Irish people are not. You can keep ignoring them, but their numbers will only keep growing.
At least there are some politicians actually standing up for the people. Now let's bring it back to America and what the Trump administration has been getting up to this week. We've had serious truths exposed this week. Democrat politician Carl Sprayberry, who once called for the assassination of Donald Trump, has been arrested in a child predator sting operation.
This was all for child exploitation, trying to reach out to children via the internet. The Muskogee County Sheriff's Office, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, including the Georgia Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, and 12 other law enforcement agencies were all a part of this successful investigation.
There were no children at harm at all in this, except for the fact that had we not been there as law enforcement working in an undercover capacity, these very same perpetrators that were arrested would have been talking to our children and our community.
Now, Carl Sprayberry, one of the 19 individuals arrested, actually ran for a state representative seat right here in the state of Georgia. 3 arrested did have an illegal alien status. They've all been arrested here in Muskogee County.
We're not going to stop until they stop preying on our kids.
We found out last week that Letitia James has been committing mortgage fraud, but it turns out this has been going on for decades.
Yet Letitia James thought that this would be an opportunity to persecute Donald Trump. So I got to thinking that the reason she thought she should charge Trump with mortgage fraud, she kind of got the idea because she'd been doing it for 40 years. And you can pull up her very first mortgage when she was 24 years old. She pretends to marry her father. She doesn't qualify probably for a loan to buy she was going to buy a house that was a little townhouse, 800 square feet. And on the mortgage application, it says husband and wife, Robert James and Letitia James, in 3 places, the signature page, the top page. Clearly, she couldn't qualify as 24-year-old, probably with no job. And she pretends she's married to her father to qualify for a loan. So everything she does in the mortgage world is fraudulent. Whereas Donald Trump, who's like a hero in New York City, he built the city, he built buildings, he saved the ice skating rink. I mean, he's a legend. And somehow she prosecuted him for these crimes that she was guilty of.
I think it's very worth analysing the way that these people who attack Trump and have so much vocal hatred towards him so often end up having terrible, dark skeletons in their closet. We can learn from this to identify when people are projecting, actually have dark intentions behind their virtue signalling. This week, ABC settled their defamation lawsuit with Trump and agreed to pay $15 million.
Trump filed the suit against the network and its top anchor after George Stephanopoulos incorrectly asserted 10 times in an interview that Trump was found liable for rape in the civil suit with E. Jean Carroll.
Justice prevails. The Energy Secretary, Chris Wright, revealed that Biden drained the strategic petroleum reserves so quickly to drop prices before the election that it damaged the facilities.
We are refilling the reserve now, and we will continue to refill the reserve the whole time I'm in office.
It's important to know these things because there's an awful lot of damage that the Trump administration is having to repair. The world is healing. America is healing, but it's going to take time. Trump has said again this week that he believes that the tariffs coming in are going to be enough that he could possibly eradicate all income tax.
We're going to be cutting taxes, and it's possible we'll do a complete tax cut because I think the tariffs will be enough to cut all of the income tax. Now, we have a lot of debt that's been left to us, unfortunately over many years. We'll take care of that, but we're going to be giving people of this country a tremendous tax cut. And we're going to start with people making less than $200,000 a year.
The Florida House has passed a bill that bans all geoengineering and weather modification efforts within the state. They're sending it to the governor's desk for final approval. Under this bill, it will be illegal to inject, release or disperse any substances into the atmosphere intended to alter temperature. The legislation also requires that any aircraft outfitted for geoengineering or weather modification be reported to the Department of Transportation. And RFK Jr. has talked about this week as well, that he is going to have someone solely dedicated to addressing the geoengineering issue. This week, we're also seeing continued standing for what is right, standing up for principles. Elon Musk did an interview where he talked about the appearance of good versus the reality of good.
And I take great offense at those who put the appearance of goodness over the reality of it.
And James O'Keefe came out and said that after that interview, it actually inspired multiple federal whistleblowers to step forward.
A couple of whistleblowers and insiders were so inspired by him saying that. They were on the verge, they were on the fence of blowing the whistle, of giving the information, and now they're willing to do it as a result of what Elon said. Big things coming at OMG.
RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard are working together now on COVID and Fauci and the biolabs, and they are set to release absolute proof that the Democrats and Fauci created and released COVID-19. Moving on to the next segment, Law and Order is back, and it's a breath of fresh air. Kash Patel this week announced the arrest of the leaders of a global child exploitation cult linked to a satanic neo-Nazi network. Trump published a post on Truth calling for the arrest of the people involved in the Act Blue money laundering scheme and calling for the arrest of people like Adam Schiff.
The new orders that will require Act Blue to be investigated and for the government to develop a whole of government approach to make sure that foreign money doesn't seep in through online fundraising.
If the president is asking for it, I imagine it is being worked on. Another Democrat has been arrested this week for trafficking illegal aliens across the border. Joshua Castro, an inspector in Governor Katie Hobbs' Arizona Department of Agriculture, has been arrested smuggling illegals across the border multiple times. And business is back in the USA. TSMC are investing $165 billion
in 1,100 acres in Arizona, and they're building the highest tech chip manufacturing, semiconductors, and 4,000 employees.
And Ford's CEO came out this week and backed Trump's tariffs.
So look, we think this is really great for the country. We really support the president's initiative. We never left the America on car production. And so this moderation is reasonable, I think, for mostly our competitors.
Super Bowl champions visited the White House this week and Trump's grandkids got to play with them.
I first amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
That is just honestly so beautiful. To end things on a lighthearted note, firstly, these sprinkles apparently in Walmart are already hitting the shelves 100% free from artificial dyes. So if you're somewhere sunny, you can enjoy some ice cream and sprinkles knowing that there is no artificial dye in there. On the topic of ice cream, there's a quote this week from Elon Musk on what it's like to be friends with President Trump and run Doge. We'll be on Air Force One or Marine One and Trump will be like, hey, do you want to stay over? I'm like, sure, but I didn't request it, to be clear, Musk said, sharing with reporters that sometimes when he is in DC, he stays at the White House in the Lincoln bedroom. It's just like we've literally arrived at a friend's house, I guess, and then it's like, do you want to stay here? I'm like, sure. One night when he stayed over, the president called him to make sure he helped himself to some dessert in the kitchen. Then he'll actually call late at night and say like, oh, why don't we make sure you get some ice cream from the kitchen? And then I went to the kitchen and got the ice cream and I ate a whole tub of ice cream, Musk said, adding that it was caramel flavoured. Don't tell RFK Jr., he joked. Now we can have artificial free sprinkles with that ice cream. That'll make RFK Jr. happy. So that's everything from this week, guys. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on everything that's happening. And also, please let me know, did I miss any of the good news this week? Were there any good things that happened that you were delighted about that I didn't cover? And what are you most excited about at the moment? Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. I just want to give a huge shout out to Steve Hesselbrock and thank you for donating to my Buy Me a Coffee. I'll leave the link in my description. I really appreciate your support and all of you guys. Thank you for watching. So I'll see you guys soon.